Hello, Bears fans, and welcome back to another edition of Bears on Tap. I am Luce. He is Q. You know us already, but we are joined by a very, very, very special guest today as a continuation in our State of the Bears series. We are joined by our man, our friend, Mr. SKOKS. SKOKS, first off, sir, how are you doing today? How are things?
Yeah, it's going all right. Just graduated college not too long ago, about a month ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's just getting into things, Bears news, training camp's coming up soon. Hawks are doing very, very well, number one pick, and I'm super pumped about that. And obviously the Bears, number one pick, and we'll get into that later. Yeah, doing good.
Good, man. Well, we're thankful for you joining us, Q. Before we get started, but I have to ask you as well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Just grinding, always grinding. I can talk a little bit about what we're doing with this series for any fans who haven't caught the previous episodes. So basically, we wanted to get a numbers guy, a film analyst, a fan, and a football coach at some level to come on the show. And we're asking them all the same questions. So our goal here is to compare and contrast different viewpoints of how they're seeing the Bears right now. And obviously, we'll get into what those questions are soon enough. But if you missed any of the previous episodes, make sure to go back and check them out because we had some really interesting conversations. And I expect today's to be a really interesting conversation.
Well put, Q. Well put. And yeah, absolutely. If you haven't, go ahead. If you aren't already, subscribe to the YouTube, join the conversation with us as well. It's where also you can rewatch all the episodes that Q just mentioned. Jonathan Wood, Robert Schmitz joined us already. We're going to keep this thing going with our boy SKOKS here. So SKOKS, first off, tell everybody a little bit about you. Obviously, we're very familiar with you. You're a listener of ours, and we're very obviously appreciative of you. But give everybody a little bit of a background, where your Bears fandom started and all that fun stuff like that.
Yeah, so just get in like my fandom. Die-hard Chicago sports fan. Hawks, Bears, Bulls. Mainly, I tune in with the Cubs more recently. Like the last 2 years, I've just paying more attention to it.
Rough time to become a Cubs fan.
Yeah, it's a little rough. It's reminding me of what the Bulls were like and what the Bears used to be. Just kind of all over the place. Don't really have a direction right now, but we hope to get that rolling. Yeah. So Bears fandom, mainly during like grade school. I'm like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Don't really know much, but the big names that pop out are Urlacher, Hester, even Cutler. Actually, he used to have a Cutler jersey. He was a fun player to watch, but that's where it started. Didn't know too much about the scheme. Didn't know a lot of details really. Just watching the game. Yeah, but more recently, just been learning a lot from a bunch of shows. You guys too. You guys get in it pretty well, and it's really helping me out. Yeah.
And one of the reasons we asked you to be on this one, SKOKS, is you are always commenting on our videos, and we love it. We love to get that interaction. So we wanted to get someone who we interact with pretty consistently on here. So we want to thank you for that.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, love that. And sometimes I think that, to Q's point, makes this fun, right? Because you are going to have a very different viewpoint than other people. And I think that's the beauty of this series that, we are doing here with Bears on Tap over the course of the summer is just diving in and learning how people view the team, the state of the organization, and things like that. Because it's really easy. I think we all can relate. You go on Twitter, you see a take that you don't like, and you're just like, oh, these idiots or these people don't know what they're talking about. But it really is fascinating to learn, like, truly just to sit back and kind of understand where everybody is coming from with their viewpoint and why they know what they know about the team and stuff like that. So really cool part of this series, and we're looking forward to continuing here with you, sir. So let's get started, shall we? We'll just dive right into the questions here. How do you see the state of the Chicago Bears?
Yeah. So starting out, really just I love building through the draft, and polls came in. What was it? A year and a half now, and
Yeah, they're about.
he just took it down to the studs, starting out like cutting Goldman. Cohen, obviously, he was hurt, injured. Just getting rid of those old 2018 guys from the last regime, right? And I appreciate that. Similar to the Blackhawks, where they're just tearing it down all the way, which it should be done. Like, if you're going to rebuild, this is how you do it. You have to build through the draft, and you have to get rid of those whatever it is, like bad contracts, just older veteran guys that are not helping for the future, right? At the last trade deadline, getting rid of Quinn, I didn't think we could get it done, but he obviously shipped him out for anything, and I believe we got a fourth rounder or third rounder.
Yep.
He
And
got a ring,
right,
or almost a ring.
yeah,
He got an NFC championship ring.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. He sat in with it. I think he was injured for I don't know, like 95% of the time, but yeah. Yeah, but smart spending with the new regime polls, just accumulating draft picks. I mean, we've had 10 plus draft picks the last two drafts, and that's how you do it. More shots in the dark there, and we will hopefully pull out some pretty good players for the future.
I think I'm with you on the point of like, when there's two schools of thought when a GM comes in, right? It's like retool or rebuild. And because, the last guy was probably fired for a reason. You don't see many GMs winning a playoff game and then getting fired. But so I think when you look at the retool aspect, you can think about like the Vikings last year were clearly a retool, right? And they were fairly successful with it, but it's like they're kind of stuck in this spot now of like, well, what do we do now? Because we still didn't have enough to really make any noise. Or like even you want to go to the really ugly aspect of like trying to retool. You go back to the Phil Emery Bears. They said, oh, we're just a few pieces away. We can fix this thing, and it set the franchise back 5 years probably
Right.
because of the decisions that were made there. So I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I think the rebuild is the right way to go. The bit more painful way to go in the early going. But the right way, I mean, it's honestly, it's what we saw Ryan Pace do as well. And, we saw Pace get, I want to say his first his first three drafts had 10 plus picks each. Like the very first one didn't because they were pretty pick poor. But beyond that, he had a ton of picks. And that's how you find the Eddie Jackson, the Tariq Cohen, by having just those as many shots as you can take, right? It doesn't matter if I shoot 10% from the 3-point line if you're giving me 300 attempts. Like
Right.
that's kind of the idea there. So I mean, I'm with you. I like that they're in the rebuild. It seems like it's going in the right spot.
Right. I guess just want to touch on one more thing. Like if, obviously, like the coaching, if you can nail the coaching staff down for a long term, then we could sustain that success. With the draft picks developing, and you have the coaches that came in with them, and there's already that chemistry there. Just sustain success. That's what we want to see.
Absolutely. And you look at, right, like a team like Kansas City and Philly, right? Two franchises that this Bears front office is now built from because of Cunningham and Poles. And it's the exact same thing, right? They feel like they got their head coaches correct. They think that they have their coaching staffs in place, and you see them continually have those successful drafts because that's where they've built, right? Like it's easy to say, oh yeah, they signed a free agent here and they signed a guy here, but the overwhelming majority of their players, especially their impact players, were guys that they got through the draft. So 100% in agreement with you there,
And
Skokes.
quick question for you there on the coach front. What's your opinion? Does a head coach have to be an offensive guy? Or do you just go for the best coach that you can find and try to find the like the Harbaughs or the I don't want to say Belichick because that's not fair, but like like D'Amico Ryans just got hired, those type of guys that you're looking for.
Right. Yeah. So with Coach Flus, I love the way that he came in. Defensive minded, just seems like a great leader. A great speaker in interviews and even like at training camp. Like I've never seen the coaching staff thank the fans for coming out. I mean, there's hundreds of people spending the whole day out there at House Hall, and I believe it was the first week of training camp last year, and he just took a couple minutes just to say thanks. Thanks for coming out. This is our first week back. We hope to see you guys more, and I really, I appreciate that. And the fan base does too.
So were you at were you there at Hallis Hall?
Uh, Mainly at training camp. I love going. Like I probably
Yeah.
get maybe 6 or 7 plus tickets or a days. So
Nice.
yeah, I'm definitely looking to be back there. Maybe like
Yeah.
a full week's worth. Yeah.
That's cool. That's a nice little nugget. I didn't know that. I live in Texas, so I don't go to training camp. But
Right.
I didn't know that. And it sounds like you've been to quite a few and never had that experience before.
Yeah. I mean, even when the bus drivers, saying what's up, SKOKS, I mean, that's pretty crazy. It's like, yeah, I'm back here for Wednesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm back. Love
That's
it.
cool, man.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next item that we have here. What are you hoping to see the Bears focus on more in 2023? And you can take that any direction you want.
Mhm. Yeah. The first thing that just points out to me is, can we have a routine offense, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I love the offense last year. The changes that Getsy made, right, with the running game and Justin running as well. But can we see that routine where it doesn't seem like we're pulling teeth on third down, or even going for it on fourth down? Like, man, is this going to happen? Is this going to work? Like, can we have a routine? I mean, can we keep the chains moving? And seeing quick passes, obviously the upgrade in O-line, that helps out a lot with everything. We could see what they could come up with for the quick game. Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot, honestly, because like that is such a good way to look at it. I feel like some people will overcomplicate that question, right? Like, what do you want the Bears to focus on? It's like,
Right.
oh, better quarterback play or better, running game. But like, just as simple as a routine offense, right? Because
Right.
you, like you say, you look at even just some of the other teams in the division when they've come to town and played the Bears. Obviously, last year being a horrible example of that, but even in years prior to that, they would have more consistent drives. They're putting together 6 and 7 play and 8 play and maybe even 9 and 10 play drives. It's not just 3 and out or, oh, the big play is what they absolutely need to rely on in order to move the ball down the field. Just having that consistent tempo really does make a big difference for a team and even for, I think, the fan psyche, right? Just like you're not sitting there wanting to bash your head off the wall because you're like, they can't move the ball.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's something that we talked about all last year. Was like, what's the bread and butter? What's your identity? When you need 5 yards, what's your 5 yard play that you're saying? You guys can't stop this, and if you focus enough on it, maybe you can. But I need 2 plays. I need the play that I know that they can't stop, and the play that I know builds off of it for when they decide to overcommit to stopping it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Bears didn't have a lot of last year. And with Justin Fields, you think that there's so much opportunity to build that into the offense, right? With how much you can use his legs and get him out on the move, and adding the weapons that they have, I think will really give them a good opportunity to build that what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Right. Even like bringing in DJ Moore. DJ Moore having tight ends, Komet, Tanyan, just having that easy dump off, I mean, is this going to get 3 to 5 yards or is it going to pop off for 10 to 20 yards? Just having that dump off, I think is great. And we'll definitely see that improved this year. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
100%. And kind of building off of that question, you might take this an entirely different direction as well, SKOKS, but what is your favorite thing that the Bears are doing? And whether that's, the roster decisions they're making or a specific one, something maybe that's more schematic, or just anything in general that you like right now that's going on, whether it's the front office, the coaching staff, etc. What is your favorite thing right now that the Bears are doing?
Right. Just seeing mainly this offseason, right? Lucking in at number one pick, and we got a haul for it. I'd like to see it as a haul, right? We got a lot of picks, especially DJ Moore, and investing a lot into the offensive side of the ball. I mean, that's what we really needed to do. I mean, this season, it's all about Justin for me. I mean, just balling out. Just you have your guy. We've upgraded the line, and I've loved the upgrades that we've made, and I love the investment. Right tackle Darnell Wright. I would have liked to see maybe a younger center come in, even though we did. We draft we drafted Kramer
Mhm.
last year out of Illinois. Um, I like him, but does he have any fall off from that injury? Because it seemed pretty serious to keep him out the whole year. I believe he just came back right now for this offseason. But definitely the investment on the offensive side of the ball. Yeah, love it.
It's weird, right?
Right.
As a Bears fan to invest in the offensive side. Like it's just we've only
Mhm.
seen it once and it blew up pretty quick after like a year.
Yep.
So
Yep.
at least in my life. I mean, thinking through the offensive additions, it's DJ Moore, obviously, Nate Davis, Darnell Wright,
Hmm.
Roshan Johnson, and the trio of running backs or duo of running backs they brought in on top of him. And yeah, I mean that's Tyler Scott's even a sleeper one, like
Yeah.
that's
Hmm.
something that I think could pay dividends down the road, getting Tyler Scott where they did once they, have to think about if everything goes right, paying
Mhm.
Justin Fields like
Right.
that cheap Tyler Scott contract could come back to be a real boon for them. But like I said, it's weird because we see, the Lovey Smith Bears. They can't get it done. The defense is good, but the offense just needs more help. So what do? They pay Julius Peppers $100 million to get after the quarterback. Which I
Hmm.
love Julius Peppers. He
Right.
was awesome to watch, but it wasn't what they needed. It was
Hmm.
what Bears culture says that you do. And the
Mhm.
league has kind of passed by that Bears culture, and we've been slow to evolve, but I'm happy to see that it's finally kind of evolved.
Right. Um, Even tying back to like a few years ago, right? Where we brought in Jimmy Graham, right? Awesome name, but it's a little late for that, giving him that contract too. It's just not the right move, right? But
Mhm.
building it the right way, and it's on the offense. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and just real quick, like thinking through too, you mentioned obviously like DJ Moore being such a big addition, and just like almost the way that they went about it, right? Because it's so easy to say, oh well, like look at the terrible contract they gave a guy like Jimmy Graham. He already got paid, and
Right.
because of the trade, a lot of those bonuses and guarantees and stuff stay in Carolina. So you actually get DJ Moore at a bit of a bargain. It's weird to your guys' points. Like it's weird seeing the Bears not only invest in the offense, but creatively and wisely invest in the offense. And I think that's the really kind of strange part of this whole thing.
Hmm.
when I think it's also like I'm not sure there was a receiver available with more upside than DJ Moore. I mean, you could go get T Higgins, but I think the questions of his downside of being like I'm a believer that T Higgins can be your number one, but like it's not proven. So you're always dealing with that downside of like until he proves it on the field that he can be the number one for your team, there's going to be that question of can he really? But with DJ Moore, you've seen him be a number one in offenses with awful quarterback play, like putting up 1,000 yards with nobody. So to me, that's screaming. You got this 26-year-old receiver who's proven that he can be that dog on your offense, and he can still get better if the quarterback play is better. Like that's something that I thought was a very, very smart place to attack. Like finding that guy who still has upside that might be untapped.
Right. I think I was on vacation in Austin, Texas at the time of the at the trade. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there for South by Southwest for
Okay.
school,
Mhm.
and the trade popped up, right? And I was thinking, oh, it's probably Brian Burns they threw in, right? Or D tackle Derek Brown,
Mhm.
which are cool names, but I always had that name in the back of my head, DJ Moore. What if we somehow pulled that off? Like, how is that going to happen? And Poles got it done. It's unreal, unreal.
I didn't think Carolina would deal him. Like,
Right.
if you're going to get your quarterback,
Mhm.
there's a lot of data out there that points to young quarterback success being highly, highly tied to wide receiver skill. And like, to throw him out and you're taking a quarterback number one, I just didn't think made sense. But I'm glad they disagreed with me.
Mhm.
So moving on to the next thing here, it's along the same lines, like same branch of question, but just polar opposite. What's your least favorite thing about the Bears right now, from players to coaches to front office to ownership, whatever it might be?
Mhm. Yeah. I could probably tie more into like just a fan perspective. Like I've been to a lot of training camps, right? Lot of days, and there's one thing that always gets the fans uh, during practice. You can't take a lot of pictures or videos, right?
You can
Um.
draw.
Oh yeah, right. You could draw up the plays, the playbook, right? But they are super strict on just camera rules. Like if they see you, like you're holding up your phone, for like more than 10 seconds, then they're gonna call you out, and then they tell you to come down, like show what you're recording, and sometimes like make
Really?
you, yeah, like they make you delete it, and I never really understood it because I mean, we are the fan base, we're promoting the team, we're promoting the the brand. Never really understood it, because there's nothing crazy schematic that goes on during like the first 2 weeks of training camp, and I just don't. I don't know. It's weird. It's funny. Yeah.
That's it. What's really weird about it to me is like, that's something that has transcended across every GM, every
Right.
head coach. It's not so like it's not just it's ownership. It has to be. But why are they so secretive about it? It's a little odd.
Hmm. Right. And I think the Patriots or someone else, they live stream the entire training camp day, and it's just funny. Doesn't make sense.
Same old Bears. What are you gonna do, right?
Right.
Same old Bears. Oh no.
There's someone I know who had a story. I think it was at last year's camp or maybe 2 years ago,
Hmm.
and one of the Bears security guys was just hounding him
Yep.
about that, and it wasn't him. It was a guy who looked like him.
Yep.
But the security guy kept going after him and after him. He's like, I don't. He's like, you think I know how to use the camera on my phone? Like, it's a
Right.
guy who doesn't like. He's not the most technology savvy guy either.
Yeah.
It was a hilarious story, but like they were just being ridiculous about it.
Yeah. It's super overblown. Yeah. It's funny. Yeah.
I like that. I like that. That's definitely I think I appreciate that answer too, because that is the most like I'm a fan and this is what I want to do answer.
Hmm.
And we haven't gotten that yet in this
Yeah,
entire
No.
series. So that's why like I love that. Because it's true. Like I can't tell you how many times I've heard from people when they go to training camp. I was there 1 year myself, and like everybody's like, yeah, you pull your phone out, like people are like staring at you, like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with that? Are you gonna record? Don't do it. Don't do
Mhm.
it. Like it's crazy, man. It is absolutely crazy. But hopefully keeping the spirits a little high because we got bones to pick with Bear security at training camp. What positions, or just one position singular, are you most excited for in 2023 with the Bears?
Right. Um, I didn't really want to go the obvious route. Justin is obviously number one on my list. I'm excited, a little anxious about just how it's all going to play out. Really, the wide receiver room. I think we've touched on it the last few weeks. Just seeing what Moore, Mooney, Claypool, even tight ends. Komet, Tanyan, what they could do in this offense. But I think a really underrated room right now is just the whole secondary, right? Jalen Johnson still here. Hopefully, we could work out a smaller contract, but I don't really see it getting done. We still have Gordon, Vildor, the rookies, Terrell Smith. I really like them. Fifth round, I believe, fifth round
Yep.
pickup. Even getting rid of Houston Carson, I believe they did not bring him back. The sixth round rookie, I think seventh round, Kendall Williamson from Stanford.
Yeah.
He took the number 36, so I think that confirms.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's
Yeah, yep,
that confirms it.
yep. No more DeAndre, but I would like to see what he has in just limited snaps, special teams. Take that DHC role. Yeah. It's a really exciting room. Even last year's undrafted rookies, Blackwell, Jalen Jones. I think they proved a lot last year that they can hang around. They can play with these guys, and I think it's a bright spot right now. It's a really bright spot.
I love that you brought up too, because I feel like when everybody does discuss the DB room, a lot of the focus is on obviously the guys that were here last year, right? Brisker, Gordon, Jackson, Johnson. But then usually the first rookie that gets brought up is Stevenson, right? Because he was the second round pick. But I like that you brought up some of the depth guys, because when you really do sit back and actually look at it and think about it, they did invest heavily in that DB room from a depth perspective later in the draft. Took some shots on guys, hey, we like some part of his game. Let's see what he's got. Especially in a good franchise, right? Like we see it all the time. Not every rookie makes an immediate impact. Some guys take 2, maybe 3 years to make an impact on the field regularly. But who's to say, to your point, right, that a Williamson or a Smith can't step up and be an impactful player on special teams that is still going to benefit this Bears team in 2023. So I personally love that answer. Q, I don't know if you've got anything else about that.
Yeah, well, as you were going about the answer, you said I don't want to pick the obvious one. I was thinking man, that's a good thought process. What would I pick if I wasn't if I was sitting there going everyone's going to pick receiver. I don't want to say receiver. And my brain went straight to corner.
Right.
It is going to be interesting to see how this all plays out this year with how you see Kyler Gordon. I kept wanting to say Kyle Gordon. Kyler. How you see him play in the slot exclusively, because he's a guy who he had a tougher time in the slot than outside last year, but it's the coaching staff seems to like him better there. He seems to be more confident in the slot and like it better based on everything he said. So I'm really interested to see how that plays out. I think Tyreek Stevenson was a guy who was heavily overlooked by a lot of draft analysts because he might not fit your man heavy scheme where you're going to need him following receivers off of every double move and tailing guys like crazy because of his agility, but he's an outstanding fit for some schemes. And I think the Bears are one of those schemes. So I'm really interested to see how his straight line explosiveness plays in this defense, because I think it's going to be really good. And then Jalen Johnson wants to be paid like a cornerback one. I think he has the talent to be that. He needs to stay healthy, but he wants to be paid like it. It's a contract year. Those seasons are always fun for those guys because they leave it all on the field. There's a lot of dollars on that field for him this year to go get. And then, yeah, I was actually a fan of the corner out of Minnesota that you mentioned, Terrell Smith. Is it?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Terrell Smith. I was a fan of his tape. I only got to watch one game going into the draft process because I was mostly focusing on the pits, but I did watch one game of his, and I was like, okay, I can see this guy being a good fit for this defense. He has a lot of similar traits to Tyreek Stevenson, so I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in that secondary that you mentioned and touched on. That I think it's a really strong answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just like sort of thinking back to last year's draft, right? I mean, we thought that they were athletic, right? And which they are, super athletic, super physical. But you look at this year's draft. I mean, we're bringing in Stevenson, Smith, Sewell, even Dexter. Like this is extremely athletic draft class, and like if you were to compare like this year's and last year's draft class, I think they're just going to run them out of the gym. I mean, these guys, it's unreal. Their RAS scores, I forgot the number, but was it high eights or was it near nine? I forgot the RAS score, but it's unreal. The athleticism of this year. Yep.
And I think it's important to mention not just athleticism, but athleticism at premium positions.
Right.
You know, offensive tackle, cornerback, defensive tackle. Some people say isn't as premium of a position. I think it's the most premium position personally outside quarterback because you just don't find defensive tackles that often who are that special and that, you know, that much more than a run stuffer that can really generate a push. So like throwing your chips in on athletic guys there, I think is smart. I think that's how you find some of the guys who might have been overlooked. So not just getting the athletes, but getting them at premium positions, I think is a big deal for me and something that I applaud polls for. Now, moving to the next thing here, again, same branch of questions, but what's the position that you're more worried about that might think need more help or more like kind of, man, I don't want to think about that position even.
Mhm. Right. It's pretty obvious, you know. Just right in the face. I mean, who's gonna rush a passer, right? Um, Coming off of the year before last year, Travis Gibson, he had some upside. He had what was it, around 6 sacks, and we were looking for him to take off. And
I
with
think
more, Mhm.
I think according to PFF, he actually hit 10. It was probably because he had a few half sacks
Really,
because PFF counts halves as full.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was expecting him to take a jump with more opportunity. We shipped out Quinn. Very disappointing with more opportunity, and obviously the middle of the D line that doesn't help with pressure. Like even Dominique Robinson, I loved how he started off. You know, the first few games of the year, just really coming on in the scene. The first game, I think, was the 49ers. I mean, he wrecked shop that first game. It was really exciting. But I think with that full workload of just getting out there, I mean, I don't know the snap percentage or snap count that he had last year, but he was super raw, you know, coming in. And I think even he was surprised how much he was out there, you know.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, Robinson was even, I think, one of the more interesting takes I've seen on him
Mhm.
is, you know, he came from a MAC school that played 9 games the year before. So he pretty much doubled his games
Mhm.
and became a more consistent player on the field like halfway through the year. While he was also a guy who only played the position like 2 years in college. He was a quarterback then a wide receiver when he got to Miami, Ohio. Like he spent 2 years trying to finding his way to the D line. So inexperienced plus has never played snaps like this and the number of games like this. It's going to be tough for that guy to, you know,
Right.
walk into the NFL and give you 30, 40 snaps a game. And I think it's still an uphill battle for him even after a year experience. Like there's going to be I don't think it's fair to throw expectations on him of being a high end pass rusher this year. Maybe a situational guy. I think that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I mean the D line, especially the edge rusher spot, has worries.
Mhm.
Did you have something to say, Ron?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I think the D line right now, the way I look at it, it's made up of a lot of guys that have a lot of what if potential. But in terms of what are you gonna do for me right now, week one against Green Bay, there's a lot of concern there, right? I think that's really where it lies. I think I could honestly probably say the guy that the most confidence per se on the D line that I personally have in them is probably a combination of pretty much what's going to be your one techniques, and that's Billings and Dexter. Like I think those are the guys that they're going to show enough where you're like, okay, I trust you. I trust you to be on the field. But I think a lot of other guys are going to give you some of those highs, like you said with Robinson and what we kind of went through with him last year, Skokes. And then there's going to be a lot of lows too. And it's going to be really interesting to see kind of who does take maybe a developmental step next season, or who's a little more stagnant in terms of just style of play because they did not add at that position all that much.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
like
I was going to say Jadeveon Clowney's still available, folks.
right. I mean, I do see a move at edge coming pretty soon. I think two guys are off the board already. Frank Clark and who was it? Someone else. Former Bear. Floyd. I didn't see us.
Floyd.
Yeah, I didn't see us bringing them in, but that's two guys off the board pretty quick, within maybe 2-3 days it was. So I see a move coming up pretty quick. But I wanted to touch on maybe just the O line real quick. Tevin Jenkins, right? He is awesome when he's healthy. I mean, he is elite, possibly in the run game. He could shore up in pass pro a bit, but is he going to be healthy for 17 games? Or even, I mean, man, 13 games, 12 games. I mean, can you make it? And I know it's not his fault with that back injury when he came in during his draft year, but it seems like that's hindering his long-term health. It's a long season for the players. It's a lot of beating, uh, and I'm just really concerned about him staying in the lineup for 17 games.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid concern to have too. Is just you look at this offensive line as is, right? And who you're pretty much predicting to be the starting five. Two fits that offensive line have experienced health issues. Jenkins probably most notable, but even Whitehair a little bit last year. We watched kind of that roller coaster with his health as well, and I think that does present a lot of concern to not just you, Skokes, but I think a lot of people is just, hey, it's a talented group if all five are healthy and on the field for 17 games. What's that group look like if a Jenkins can only stay on the field for 8 games or 9 games, or a Whitehair for, like you said, like a 12 to 13 number. I mean, it still makes a big difference over the course of a season where one game legitimately in the NFL can swing you out of a playoff position, or you're the worst of the missed playoff position draft picks then when April rolls around.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also, I mean, I think it gets overlooked because he's new here, but Nate Davis has missed games almost every year of his career, too. Like, never more than 4, I don't think. Like, he's played at least 12 games every year, but that's still, I think he only has one season where he played every game. And that's concerning on an O-line that has those injury issues like you're mentioning here. Especially, like, along the offensive line. It's really because it's what they call a weak link unit, right? It's only as strong as its weakest link. So if Sam Mustipher is your weakest link, your O line's only as good as Sam Mustipher. Like that's kind of it's not a place you want to be in. I really like the talent that they have on the O line right now, but the depth does still concern me, like you said.
Right, and I think that the concern does come from that depth. Ja'Tyre Carter, the rookie from last year, right? Really athletic. He has good size, but is he ready to step in? When he's needed. Say Jenkins goes down or Davis goes down, like you said. Is he ready to bang up front? I just don't know.
I think Jatari Carter is my like ultimate like fan fall in love with training camp guy guy. I don't know why. I've never even seen him play football, but I just want to believe that this guy's gonna be good when I hear that he had like D1 basketball offers out of high school, and I'm just like, he's gonna do it.
He's the one that's gonna figure it out. But no, I mean that certainly is a concern, really on both trenches, right? I think that's fair concern from you there, Skokes, with both of those positions. Final question on our list: season prediction. What are the Bears doing in 2023?
Right. I've listened in to the last few weeks with Robert and then coming in, but I think I'm going to stick on the same path here. Just I think 7-10 is that sweet spot. With divisional games like Game 1 versus Packers it's in Soldier Field. Week 1, yeah, we cannot lose week 1, man. I mean, we're doing a lot of talking this year, with Green Bay. Like I was up in Green Bay for a fishing trip, and was doing some talk, just talking some ball, and they really have no idea what's happening over here. Like they're not even aware that like we were building from the number 1 pick that we traded, and I think they're in for a rude awakening, man. Green Bay fans, I mean, we're coming. So yeah, if we could snag 2 wins, right? That'd be great. The Vikings are just, I mean, they're the ultimate troll. You know, I mean, the amount of close games they won last year was unreal, and I don't see that happening again this year. I mean, you can't get that lucky, or even like us last year, like we can't get that unlucky losing our close game. So hopefully we could flip the script. And
but the Panthers can.
Right. Yeah, it's funny, man. The Lions, I believe they had 8 wins last year, and I don't, I, I mean, Dan Campbell's cool, he's that rah guy, right? And I don't trust in his coaching right now. I just don't see him as a legit, like, I'm going to take us to the promised land. I don't see Detroit improving on 8 wins either. So hopefully we can snag 1 or 2 there also. Yep.
Well, I think with Dan Campbell, like the thing that pops in my head is coaches that are those, more hard nosed, more rah coaches. They tend to burn out over time. Like I think Harbaugh is the ultimate extreme version. Jim Harbaugh, not John, of like, I got a 4-year window and these guys are going to quit on me. That's like that. That's the ultimate extreme of it, right? It's like, I'm going to push these guys as hard as they can go until they just quit. Like, so I wonder where that is for Campbell, where he falls on that scale, if he does fall on that scale, because like, there's only so long that you can rah NFL football players, I feel like, to actually get anywhere before it starts to kind of break apart on you some.
I think the ultimate line though there, Skokes, is just Dan Campbell's cool and all, but just the way you said that's awesome. But no, I mean, I think that's totally fair though. I think a lot of Bears fans are conservative on the approach for the season. It's like, hey, yeah, 7 to 9 wins is kind of that sweet spot right now. But like, to your point, when you look at the rest of the division, a lot of shit can go wrong for the other 3 teams, and all of a sudden, maybe 9 wins you the division this year. Like, it could be one of those really weird years.
Jared Goff turns back into a pumpkin. It's up for like anyone can win it.
Yes. And unless like Hendon Hooker somehow steps in and lights the world on fire, I mean, I don't see that happening, at least not next year. But yeah, that'd be funny.
That would be funny.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
I mean, I think on your point, Ron, about we're pretty conservative. Like when the Bears are clearly not good, we're optimists. When it's like the Bears are approaching like that playoff caliber level, we turn to pessimists. I feel like we're like we just don't want to get hurt again because the last 3 years we've been hurt. And it's just like like in 2018, who had the Bears winning a bunch of games? You know, even after Khalil Mack was like, maybe they can get to 10. I think that's reasonable. You know, it's like we never predict a monster season.
That's awesome. That's so true, though. Like it's, I think it's the Midwesterner in all of us. I think that's just
probably that's probably
like we try to be so like middle of the road and level headed. It's like when our teams are really bad, we're like it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay. They got this. They got this. Then they do get kind of good, and you're like or you can just destroy my heart. And I don't want that to happen. So I'm gonna assume you're gonna suck, and then when you prove me wrong, great. Like. No, that is too funny, man. It's just kind of how it ends up going. But Skokes, before we start to wrap this thing up, any final thoughts from you, sir, before we shut down for the day?
Not much going on. Just maybe from last year. I started a lot on Twitter last year with Braxton Jones, like the pre-draft process, right? Just digging in for some scouting, and, just watching some interviews, doing hundreds of mock drafts, and I keep on taking Braxton. I forgot what pick it was last year. I think it was 148. I just saw one interview, and I'm like, I made the crazy prediction. The Bears are going to draft Braxton Jones, and he's going to be the starting left tackle for the Bears. And somehow, some way, that ended up happening. I mean, yeah, we drafted him, but for him to start all 17 games too, crazy prediction by me. But yeah, crazy. It's crazy stuff.
Braxton Jones starting left tackle. You heard it there first at I am SKOKS.
Yep. I_am_SKOKS on Twitter. Yep. That's my tag. Yeah, crazy prediction, man. Crazy.
I love that. Well, if you do want more predictions, people listening, at _am_SKOKS, all caps too. It has to be all caps. I mean, you could put it in; it'll probably still come up, but it's more fun when it's in all caps anyway. SKOKS, man, hey, we appreciate you joining us. Before we do fully wrap this thing up, want to remind everybody: Bears on Tap, 1 of 2 Bears shows here at On Tap Sportsnet. Check out our friends over at Bears Nation Pod as they are continuing to do some of their off-season content as well. We will continue our series here at Bears on Tap as well. Lots of good things coming, and I think we're all just craving football at this point. But you guys know the drill. OnTapSportsNet.com, at OnTapSportsNet on social media. Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox, and everything in between. We got it for you over there. So go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. SKOKS, we appreciate you joining us. Good friend of ours. Looking forward to the season, being in touch with you throughout the year, getting your thoughts as things unfold. And us for here at Bears on Tap, we'll be back next week. Hugh, you got another one dialed up for us later in the week. Unfortunately, I will not be on the microphone. It'll be the Q show. I'm excited to listen.
That's back actually next week. Next week.
Yeah. Next Thursday, right? I believe is where it'll be. Yeah, next Thursday. So do tune in. We'll be back next week. But this was an absolute blast. And gentlemen, what do you say if we get out here the way we always do with a good old bear down?
Sounds good. Bear down.